Not the crumpled notes hastily written back in school, nor the movie ticket from their first kiss, nor the blue shirt forgotten at the back of the closet. The one that still held a scent that time refused to erase. Leo died at 23, unexpectedly and suddenly. Far too young for proper goodbyes. But something inside her refused to accept the end. It was as if his love had been left hanging in the air, waiting. So, as a way to console herself and keep Leo alive in her memory, Julia started writing letters. The first letter was written 3 weeks after his death. She sent the letters to the apartment where Leo used to live because she knew the place was empty and no one would read them. She wrote, "Leo, today it rained just the way you liked. I almost texted you, out of habit. I still do that and I still wait for a reply. Leo, today I managed to laugh without feeling guilty. Don't tell anyone, but it scared me a little." She would drop the envelope in the mail like performing a ritual. She never went back to the address. She never checked on anything. She just trusted that those words needed to go somewhere. The years went by. Julia then changed jobs. She lost her fear of being alone. She gained small and visible scars. But the letters kept coming. Sometimes they were long, sometimes they were short. But their tone changed. At first, they were full of pain. Later, they became stories about everyday life. Can you believe I learned to like coffee without sugar? Oh, Leo, sometimes I think about you, but with a little less tears and a bit more longing. Sometimes that scares me a little. What she didn't know was that after almost 7 years of the apartment sitting empty, it had finally been sold. Felipe moved in on a spring morning. He wasn't looking for anything special. Just a quiet place with some space to start over, after a divorce that left him tired of endings. In the first week, he found the box of letters. It was stacked near the door, held together by a worn-out rubber band. All the envelopes had the same name handwritten on them. Felipe thought it must be some old, forgotten correspondence. He was going to throw it away, but decided to open it. He opened one, then another, and then he just couldn't stop. The letters weren't meant for him, but he could feel the emotions in each one. They spoke of love, of loss, of survival. He felt like he was intruding on something sacred. Even so, weeks later, another letter arrived. "New, raised it." "That night," he replied. And then he wrote, "Julia, my name's Felipe. You don't know me, and I was never supposed to be reading your letters, but the apartment you're writing to now is mine, and after so much silence, I thought you deserved to know." Julia then read the letters sitting on the living room floor. Her heart raced. Whoa, it got to me. Julia then read the letter sitting on the living room floor. Her heart raced. Her hands got sweaty. Her first reaction was anger. Someone had read her most intimate words, words that weren't meant for the world. She replied the same day. "These letters aren't for you. They were for someone who has already died. Please don't reply anymore." The reply came 3 days later. "I'm sorry for having read something that wasn't meant for me. I know I invaded a very private space, but I had to write to say what I wanted. I was deeply moved by the love in your letters. Reading you, I became certain of one thing. Leo was very loved by you." Julia was touched by the words, but decided not to reply anymore. However, a week later, she still hadn't forgotten about it and sent one more letter. "Did you read them all?" And he replied saying, "At first, I only read the ones that arrived after I moved. But I couldn't help myself, and I read the earlier ones too. It was so good to feel a bit of the love you had for him in every word you wrote. It must be really nice to be loved like that." Julia was intrigued. "What do you mean it must be really nice? Isn't he loved? Who is this man? Is he single? Married?" He knew her most intimate secrets, and she only knew his name, Felipe. So she sent a letter saying, "Dear Felipe, I wanted to end this matter here, because you already know too much about me. But since you've read all my letters and now know my most intimate secrets, I think it's only fair that you tell me who you are and what your story is." Felipe then replied, "Dear Julia, you're Wadik. I'll tell you everything about me. My name's Felipe, I'm 35 years old, and I live in the apartment, the one you've been writing to for almost a year. I'm a businessman and I was married for 10 years. But I went through a disappointment and I'm rebuilding my life. I don't have any children. I love to travel, enjoy a glass of wine, and listen to music. And I didn't reply to take anyone's place, nor to ease your pain, much less my own. I replied because after everything you shared, believing no one would read it, the least I could do was not remain invisible. If you want, you can come pick up your letters. I'll have them set aside for you. And if you want to stay for a coffee, I'd be very happy." Julia sat for a long time with that letter in her hand. She felt a mix of emotions, a blend of curiosity about putting a face to the man who answered her letters, but at the same time, a strange feeling about being back in her old lover's apartment, now to meet someone new. "I'm just gonna pick up the letters, have a coffee out of politeness, and leave," she told herself. And so she arranged to meet him. On Saturday afternoon, she chose a simple outfit. Nothing that looked like a date because, according to her, it wasn't. On Saturday afternoon, she chose a simple outfit. Nothing that looked like a date because, according to her, it wasn't. It was just to pick up the letters, have coffee, and leave. All out of politeness. Seeing the building's facade after so many years, her heart tightened. But it wasn't sadness, it was a sweet kind of longing, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore. Then the door opened. Felipe was there, really there this time. It wasn't how she had imagined, and yet it was exactly how it was supposed to be. He had a calm demeanor, an attentive gaze, like someone used to listening more than talking. They smiled at each other. She sat down on the couch and realized that even though she was in Leo's old apartment, everything there had Felipe's touch. She liked the feeling. Then Felipe placed the box of letters on the table. "They're all here," he said, "just the way I found them." She ran her hand over the box, as if she were touching something alive. "Thank you for not throwing them away," she said. Then he replied, "I could never do that." Then the coffee was ready, and Julia confessed, stirring her cup. "Look, I was afraid to come," she said. Felipe replied, "Me too. I was really afraid of saying something wrong or saying too much." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. "When you wrote that, it must be really nice to be loved like that. It stuck in my head," Julia said. Felipe then lowered his eyes for a moment. "Julia, it wasn't a demand nor a complaint. It was just a realization. Reading your letters reminded me that love can be whole without holding back." Julia nodded and said, "He was, completely." "And he still is," Felipe said carefully, "but in a way that doesn't stop you from moving on." And he smiled, looking at her. She looked at him, surprised, and said, "I agree with you." And she smiled at him, as if giving permission for the direction this conversation was taking. It was the smile of someone who, after a long time, was allowing herself. Felipe noticed. And this time he didn't pretend otherwise. "I've been thinking," he said, setting his cup on the table, "that maybe none of this was a coincidence." Julia then raised an eyebrow and asked, "What exactly?" "You wrote, Fard, so many years to an empty place. I end up buying this exact apartment, and the letters arrived just when I was also trying to relearn how to feel." She smiled, an open and fearless smile. Felipe then reached out his hand, not touching her, just waiting. Julia placed her hand over his, and then he said, "Julia, I don't want to replace him, nor make you forget your story, But if you'll let me, I'd like to be someone who comes after, when there's already space. Julia then smiled, and for the first time since Leo's death, she realized she was starting to like someone, and she didn't feel guilty because of that. Want to listen to some music? He asked. I promise I won't pick anything sad. Sad. You can choose, she said. The music started softly, filling the space between them without intruding. They talked about trips, about places Julia still wanted to visit, about how time changes, the way we feel, and things like that. At some point, without even noticing exactly when, the box of letters was left forgotten in the corner of the room. When Julia said goodbye, it was already getting dark. Already at the door, before leaving. Already at the door, before leaving. Felipe, thank you so much for answering. And then he replied, No, thank you for writing to me. Later, at home, Julia wrote one last letter to Leo. But this one she didn't send. The letter said, Thank you so much for being my first love. I will forever cherish our story in my heart. With love, Julia. Then he sent a short message to Felipe on his cell phone. I arrived safely. Thank you for the coffee, the music, and the laugh. It was an incredible night. And for the first time, Julia's future didn't seem like forbidden territory. It seemed like a happy new beginning, a place where she wanted to be. We've reached the end of another story, and now it's your turn. Do you believe it's possible to love someone new without erasing those who came before? Leave your opinion down below in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and, of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. A kiss and see you next time.